Okay, then to the ball basics. What is the ball? Some level of theoretical fundamentals and incremental disruption explained. So basic. What is the ball? Well, the ball is actually digestible form of explaining very abstract concept. It's very concrete in kind of way. It actually relies on source code repositories distributed around based on the Git source code tool. But to understand it as a whole, it needs to be somehow visualized in a understandable manner. What you see in the forthcoming slides, it's easy to think that it's a data, but don't think of ICT. It's actually information in a very theoretical, fundamental level. You can see it as a real-world work of and doing is something that we call as a process, and the relevant results in the system are information, because this is what it's all about: semantic information in a way that's in a controlled fashion altered. And then we briefly handle the ICT incremental and disruptive aspects, as the ADM justifies itself in basically most of current today's ICT investment, and you only have to take what you eat for and pay for what you eat for, and suddenly you are in the ball when you just think that you are using a new kind of software library. So this is information, and the information is stored and recalled what we position at the center of the ball. This is the database. It's not the SQL database nor any physical database of kind. It's just something, well yes, it is physical, but something that can store data and where you can retrieve it, or actual information. This in the visualization is atom. Atom is the smallest unit of code that does something for the information. So this is the simplest. For example, this atom can be code for OK button. So you can imagine there are endless kinds of atoms possible for different codes. Atoms then can be combined into modules. Possibilities are endless. Think Lego. A module can be lines of code which work as a form, for example. The examples here focus on the user interface, but it's actually even more straightforward on the logical operations or business processes, if that's better understood. Many modules combined together, possibly polished with stylization. Of course, it only is applicable for the user interface. We get an instance. An example of an instance is an entire website or mobile application or a backend service. For example, reittiopas fee. Now, looking at the wider scope, everyone can build their own instances using existing or customly built atoms and modules, or modify already existing instances. The method that's used here is called ADM, as of abstraction design methodology. It's so simple that anybody can do it when the level of abstraction is raised high enough, and that's exactly what we are doing on implementing the current level instances for Aalto. So users interact with instance through interfaces or on devices such as PC or mobile device. The same instance can be visualized differently depending on the device. Basically, when we focus on the information that the user needs to see and what he or she needs to input, that can be then automatically derived to proper screen sizes or proper input devices. As user interacts with the interface, the input information will go through instance into the database. The processed information that happens by the logic semantical operations in the process then comes back in various feedback forms, be it on screen information, text messages, or even traditional feedbacks like switching on a TV. So when we start to think of information more real world thing and not just data, we realize that a light switch is an example of input that provides out from the light, from the light bulb into the room as output. So in a wider scope, we see the overview of the ball of something like this. Various users with various devices interact with their own information through multiple instances operating in same instance of the ball. So the interface is on the device, something that you can see or feel or input. So in one ball there can be as many atoms, modules and instances. Each instance can share the data between them via the same database. They can also be easily cloned, modified, taken apart in any ways with ease through ADM. And when we speak of database here, I underline that it's the data access is completely authorized by the actual accessing user, which then frees the applications and the logic to just operate with the information. The application does not itself have any authorization to the user information without the user being logged in. So what's more, there can be many instances of the ball in the world, each able to share information in the database, goes in atoms, modules or instances, if wished so. The ball itself can be cloned and stored in different places. It's easier to understand in a traditional way that you have a separate data in the database and then a separate application or service accessing the data. But when we take off a bit from that thought, the application and services can be seen information just as much as any other information, media files, images, anything, music, other audio. So that's why also the code can be traversed and modified as any information in the process, or the modules itself or themselves. So where the information is then stored, it is natural to think that the ball needs space to exist. It has to be stored somewhere. And one ball can even be stored in a massive storage, like in the cloud, or it may have multiple clones, multiple storages of the one ball. So one user running in one ball can have his own information, his or her own information stored, for instance, in European located cloud storage, while the other user can choose to have something in the United States and the third one something running in China. Each storage and the connectivity to the actual running software, which also needs some place to run, they might have different attributes for security, speed, cost or reliability, or for legal issues. These are the real-world constraints or physical constraints that apply, meaning that if you want to run your instances of the software, you choose to run your version of certain service in a European data center, but you for some reason want data to be located
In an Asian data center, it means that the data access and your service is running slower than for some other party that chose to specifically store his or her data in Finland and run it in the Norway's calculation centers, for instance. So in the end, users will have the freedom to choose how they like to store their information, who can see them, and at what cost. And the option to store on the local device even is possible, as the ball does not require any specific cloud or any specific platform to be running on. But of course there are limitations of other people accessing the information if it's only stored on local devices. We have a white paper on this explaining how the information control brings the value down to the user owning the information. So for software development, information in the ball is basically parts of different levels of abstraction. If we try to compare it with today's terms, software production can be, with this method, be based on normal people input. It doesn't have to come from coders anymore. Normal people kind of requirements start to apply. That you want your buttons green and you want exactly the same applications as the other guy, but you are part of a community that provides certain configurations that fit you better on running that version of software. Think of it as auto-generated reports versus manual documents. It's like refining the information in a new kind of form, where somebody described that the report needs to be crafted by taking some kind of averages or sums or something like that from certain numbers and doing some calculations. Same thing applies when automation is used for generating software. So basically think combinations of the same base data in different ways in reports, and it's analog that you can have the same core modules but crafted in different way for two different users and still functioning the same. Of course, during the transition time, there won't be ready-made Lego modules enough to build full software, but modules can still be complete or incomplete. So think of current world API, SDK or framework guidance versus complete features, applications and systems. So we can start having normal libraries and their guidance have that thin layer of automation as provided by ADM to smooth out a lot developer experience, and what's more important, to gain immediately platform independencies, because the abstractions by design work above the technical platforms. It also means basically that the openness is a requirement. It is unavoidable by technical reasons, and also very probably by the business or the buyer's requirement, because nobody non-ICT buying software has no reason to buy it as a closed source anymore. This to be explained later on. So, incremental step justification. Why we claim that everybody is going to move to the ball. Any SDK or API or library reference examples benefit greatly from the automation. It's a really great improvement on the developer experience, and it enables cross-platform development implicitly. Think of existing ecosystem, major ecosystems such as mobile giants trying to drive and lure developers to work on their platform, provide software there. They are all trying to make it as easy as possible, and actually they probably all even want to have equal software built on every platform at once. In the end, they will want at least. It works on in-house proprietary software as well, so you don't have to open anything before your competition starts to open it, and then you have to reconsider whether you are losing your competition some features, and you have to reconsider starting to open your software as well. Buyers have no reason not to require ADM implementation from the day one. It also means probably that joint orders from smaller companies working on same kind of horizontal vertical requirements, they will require open source from the providers and owning the IPR. And at the last, it looks like normal development, but when you start to use ADM, you are basically in the ball right from the beginning.